Welcome back to OVN. Today we're going to talk about Marvel's Avengers, and the question on everyone's mind, all over the forums, all over Twitter, is this game worth it? Is it worth my time? It's a full price $60 AAA game that is considered a live service game. So we expect regular updates and regular heroes to be added, and they've promised that so far. But the issue with Marvel's Avengers is it's a broken game. It wasn't ready for prime time. Their first patch was 3.5 gigs, and that's incredibly telling considering it was their first major patch. 1,000 issues fixed. I mean, that boggles my mind that this game was released when it was. And we're in challenging times, don't get me wrong, the work from home situation and all that. But still yet, that's why you're here. You want to know if it's worth your time? I'm going to give you the pros and the cons, and I'm going to say this right up front. I'm still logging in every day, and I'm still having a blast playing it, even though there's some major issues, and it's not just quality of life. So, a like and a sub would be very much appreciated. Let's get into it. Let's start off with the bright spot, which is the campaign. The campaign was fantastic. It took me about 10 hours or so. It's going to take most people 8 to 11 hours depending on difficulty, but it goes into the story of a young Kamala Khan who writes a fan fiction for the Avengers. She's then invited as a finalist to Avenger Day, where Tony Stark and Bruce Banner decide to unveil some brand new technology, which wasn't ready, which is ironic because it's a little like this game. It wasn't quite ready. But I digress. The rest of the campaign is Kamala finding out that she gains superpowers from this disaster that happens at Avenger Day, and she goes on a quest to get the Avengers back together to unveil the truth about what really happened on Avenger Day. So in my time in the campaign, I was wondering why the forums were filled with everyone talking about getting disconnects and hard crashes to desktop, because I wasn't getting any of them. All the way through my campaign, I think maybe I had 3 or 2 times where I was kicked to desktop, but I was reading all this stuff on the forums about connectivity issues and I just wasn't seeing them. Well, right after the campaign, I found out once I entered the Avengers Initiative, which is kind of like a pre-post game, it started happening constantly. I get to the end of a mission right before it was telling me mission complete, and I would get kicked to desktop. Incredibly frustrating, and that's kind of where I started losing my patience a bit with the game. Now, since the patch, I haven't had any connection issues. I haven't been kicked to desktop but maybe 3 times in a week, so I think the patch took care of most of those issues. Well, at least it did for me. I still read on some of the forums that people are still having some kick to desktop issues, but for the most part, it sounds like if they haven't fixed it, they're very close to fixing it for everyone. So let's stay on the topic of things that are right with the game. So there's 6 Avengers that we get to play, and each one feels fantastic and unique, and their ultimate abilities are incredibly fun to use. The way that you can mix and match some of the certain elements to increase your damage is fantastic. The skill trees for each of the Avengers are unique. They let you do cool new things with each one, and every time you jump from one Avenger to another, it's a brand new experience and it keeps the game very fresh. So now let's get into some of the bad things about this game. I wrote a 13-minute script, which probably 10 minutes of the script was talking about detractors in the game, so let's try to narrow this down and not make this a 10-minute video. So let's get into some of the major issues that I have with the game that are still ongoing. Our first issue is RNG on top of RNG. So each piece of gear has specific perks that can roll on each one. And then on top of that, we have a level of valor, resilience, and these other categories that make a very big difference in gameplay. So if you're looking for a certain piece of gear and you want it statistically rolled high and you want at least 2 of the 3 perks that make sense for your playstyle, the possibilities are endless, and you could spend hundreds of hours before you reach that final, what you would consider the God roll. So next up, people are still reporting memory leaks. Now, what happens with the memory leak is that you'll be playing for half an hour or an hour or so and everything will look fine, but then you'll start seeing stuttering or frame loss. So I think that Crystal Dynamics needs to go back and find out why people are still having this issue. It's not that big a deal to have to restart my game every hour, but it's still an inconvenience and needs to be looked at. Next up is mission design and objectives. So within each mission, there's going to be these objectives that are basically checkpoints before you can move on. And there's only about 4 or 5 ones that just keep repeating themselves. It's defeat all elite enemies, capture 1 control point, capture 3 control points. It's destroy generators. You get the point here. Is there's just not enough diversity within these missions to keep us engaged and we feel like we're doing the same thing over and over again. Next up is exotics. So exotics are incredibly hard to get in this game, and I think Crystal Dynamics is actually looking at hopefully improving those odds of getting exotics, but it's not just getting them that's the problem. It's that there's really not unique perks that really set them aside and say, this is a coveted piece of gear. So what I'm getting at here, if you don't already get the point, is there's no reason to use an exotic over a legendary, or even for that matter, an epic, just because it doesn't stand out. It doesn't change the way that you play the game because you got that certain exotic. This needs to be taken a look at, and changes need to be made. Our next problem is a big one. It's local saves. So with most live service games, our saves are on server side, which keeps people from going in and editing their saves. Well, Crystal Dynamics has made it where we have local save data and we can go in and manipulate that if we wanted to. Now I couldn't, I'm obviously not smart enough to go in and do it, and I have some integrity and I wouldn't mess with things like that. But when it boils down to a raid and what would be considered a world's first race, we just can't take it seriously. We can't take anything seriously that someone would post as an accomplishment with local saves. This has to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed soon. So the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that this game just wasn't ready for public hands. It was half-baked, and they could have as many reasons as they want to as why it wasn't quite ready for us and why it had so many issues. But it boils down to, and my point being, there's new stuff coming out very soon. The raid's coming out soon. We're going to have 2 new heroes coming out very soon. And if what they gave us in the beginning was half-baked, we can only assume what's going to be coming out is half-baked as well. And that's the big problem. And that leads me to the final part of this video. Is it worth your time and money? So the answer to the $1 million question, or in this case, $60 question, is it worth your time and money to buy Marvel Avengers? Well, like I said, I've had a ton of fun playing the game, but it's getting to the point to where I'm running out of things to do that keep my interest. So what I would say to somebody who had $60 burning a hole in their pocket is, ask yourself a couple questions. 1, do you like superheroes? Do you want to fly around as Iron Man? Do you want to go invis with Black Widow and lay waste to 3 or 4 enemies and they don't even know where it's coming from? Secondly, I would say, do you like looters? Because this game is very fun and it drops a lot of loot. What I want you to keep in mind is, most of that loot you get, it's not going to be exactly what you want. And since there's not targeted loot in this game and we have RNG on top of RNG, you could become incredibly frustrated. So what it boils down to is, I think everyone would have fun playing this campaign if you like superheroes and you want to be Iron Man and you want to play as Thor and you want to feel like a god. Yeah, definitely. It's worth that time. But I think you're going to hit a wall around the 20-hour mark where you think, wow, I've kind of run out of things to do. So those are the questions to keep in mind. I think that I've probably got my money's worth out of it, but that's up to you. That's in your hands. When people say, is it worth? That's just such a hard question to answer, but I hope I've given you enough here in this video. So, a like and a sub would be very much appreciated. Drop any comments down in the comments section. I'll be sure to get back with you, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.